Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today I want to share with you guys my pure set 12 Paikuhan list. It's been a lot of fun. Now it's a little weird because it is like really heavy archetype, but they've actually constructed this in such a way that it actually does take a lot of mental power in order to get the most out of this deck. So while it is an archetype, while you are working towards a chain, there is actually a lot the deck requires you to do. So it is like a more difficult deck to pilot in terms of sequencing. It does take a lot of proper sequencing in order to get the most out of this deck. And then you go up your chain. It's a Gogeta based deck, so many of you guys love Gogeta. So with all that in mind, we're gonna go over this today. Guys, if you're new here, definitely subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to help the channel out, go down in the description, many links down below that will help out. Today, guys, you can check out the TCG player link if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards we talk about in today's video. Alright guys, so let's get started by reading the leader. When this card attacks, look at the top two cards of your deck, add up to one mono blue card among them to your hand, then place the remaining cards on the top of your deck in any order. Then choose up to one of your Paikuhan cards with an energy cost of 3 or less and return it to the owner's hand. So this is shared on both sides. When you do this on the awakened side, you also get to bounce one of your opponent's battle cards of cost 3 or less. So that is like a little bit of an added benefit that does come up sometimes, especially against like smaller swarmy aggro decks. You just want to get their attackers off the board. It is pretty cool. Bouncing back your Paikuhans is one of the main ways that you gain advantages in this deck, which we will talk about as we get into those. But what's really cool about Paikuhan is I think you can actually build him just like mono blue good stuff, or even like a different mono blue archetype, as long as it's not leader restricted, because he does give you really good search and filter. Like rearranging the top of your deck, even though you can only pick up a mono blue card, there are ways to get non-mono blue cards into your hand, which is actually a bit different than a deck like Yamcha, right? Red Yamcha from set 10, he looks at top 2, he can only grab a red card, the other card goes to the drop area. This leader is a little bit similar in that you can only pick up a mono red card, but there are ways in the deck to draw into those cards that are not monocolored if you so choose to play them. So when he awakens, life's 4 or less, draw 1 on tap 1. Backside, like I mentioned, same auto with their added removal bit, and then activate main once per turn. Look at the top 3 of your deck and put them back in any order. So realistically, just good generic effects for a blue leader. Again, you do want to play some of the Paikuhan cards, and even if you played a generic Paikuhan deck, you would play some of the Paikuhan cards. So we'll explain that right now. So we're playing a 3-3 split of Paikuhan Flawless Technique and Paikuhan supporting his comrades. Now, this is a little bit weird because you do actually want these on turn 1, more specifically the supporting his comrades, and I'll explain why when against their effects. But the weird thing is, when you do get one, you have the ability to replay it over the entire course of the game, because your leader is basically a legendary flute. Your leader will constantly bring your Paikuhans back to your hand to reuse. So we don't really want to clog the deck with a card that we will have access to over the entire course of the game once we draw it. And this deck, the leader obviously lets you filter a lot. There are other cards in the deck that let you filter a lot. So let's give them a quick read. Flawless Technique says if your leader is a blue Paikuhan card, when this card's played, draw 1, add up to 1 card from light to hand, so a little bit of self-awaken, then choose 1 card in your hand and place it on top of your deck. So this is one of the cards I was talking about that allows you to draw those non-mono blue cards. You could look at top 2 with leader, grab mono blue, let's say you have like a blue yellow card, maybe as a Zamasa super combo or something along those lines, put it on top of your deck, play this guy, draw that card. Feels really good. Auto Burst 1, if your leader card's a blue Paikuhan card, when this card's removed from your battle area by a skill, if the card you place in the drop area with the skill was a blue Son Goku or Vegeta with an energy cost of 1, play it with its skills negated for the turn. That is also shared on Paikuhan supporting his comrades. So that's one of the ways I mentioned before, where proper sequencing leads you to more pluses, in the sense that you know, look at top 2, take a card, play this Paikuhan, put another card back on top of the deck, and then you want to make sure that when you burst, it's a Goku or a Vegeta. We'll get into those Gokus and Vegetas in just a little bit. So that is shared on supporting his comrades. So what does supporting his comrades do when you play him? Auto, when this card's played, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, add up to 1 mono blue card among them to your hand, then place your remaining cards at the top or bottom of your deck in any order, and you can't play copies of this card for the turn. So he is actually a raw plus, which is why he's really good on turn 1, just to get you that basically that card that replaces itself. But it's also a filter. Like, think about this. If you go second, swing leader, play this, you looked at 4 cards on top of your deck, which gives you a lot of information, lets you make a lot of really good decisions. So that's pretty solid there. Paikuhan stalling for time. You want this guy as often as you physically can. If your leader card's a blue Paikuhan and you don't have a Gogeta card in play, when one of your cards returns to your hand from your battle area by or it doesn't have to be by a skill, play this card from your hand, and then you can't play copies of this card for the turn. So he's a free blocker in that sense. Auto, if you have 3 or more energy, and when this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill or KO'd, activate this skill. At the start of your next main phase, you may pay 2 blue. If you do, choose 1 blue Gogeta in your hand with an energy cost of 5 and play it. So a lot of times this is your most effective way to play your Gogetas, which we'll see in just a little bit. Paying 2 is the cheapest way you can get your Gogetas out in this deck, which is very, very nice. There are other ways to cheat them out. We will look at those as we get there. All right, here's our our Goku and Vegeta lineup. So Vegeta Sentinel from Hell and Son Goku Heavy Hitter are basically the same card, just with different names. Well, I guess the only other main difference is Vegeta's a blocker, Goku's a barrier. They both can be played from any area except by skills. You can't just cast them for one. Activate main. If your leader is a blue Paikuhan card and you discard this card, look at the top 3 of your deck, add up to 1 mono blue Saiyan or West Galaxy Warrior card with energy cost of 5 or less among them to your hand. Then place the remaining cards on top of your deck in any order. Then place this card on top of your deck from your drop area. So that pretty much gets this guy on top to immediately then use with your Paikuhan bursting effects, right? So you can't activate main on skills that copies this card for the turn, and the Goku does the same thing. What's really cool there is they search a big majority of your deck, including your Gogetas, and another really actually cool card we'll see in just a second. And then we have Son Goku and Vegeta Saiyan Synergy. This is coming out of the tournament pack. It is always a bit annoying when a deck needs a tournament pack card. I would say you need 4 copies of this because the way you play your Gogetas in this deck, or one of the ways rather, is by sending Gokus and Vegetas from your deck to the drop area. The fact that this guy can count as one or the other makes it super versatile. The counterattack's not too bad either. When you get the attack, play this card in rest mode. Auto, if your leader card is blue, and you place this card in rest mode at the bottom of the owner's deck. When your opponent attacks a leader card, choose up to one of your leader cards and gets 5,000 power for the turn. So the main thing about this card that everyone loves is like, oh, it's a sense of being that also like negates an attack, but it comes in play in rest mode when you negate the attack, and it basically tells your opponent like, okay, you have to attack into this card before you can attack into my leader. So in that way, it is a 2-for-1 attack stopper. Otherwise, your opponent is basically going to allow you to sense being for free. So I do get it, but I don't see that effect going off very much. I just see, it being a 2-for-1 attack stopper, which is definitely not bad. Definitely not bad by any means. But I definitely don't think it would have been too crazy if they allowed you to get the sense of being a little bit more easily. But regardless, this is our Goku and Vegeta lineup, the only ones in the deck that we're playing. It's been working out pretty good for me. Next up, we have Frieza and Cell, Match Made in Hell. This unison is actually very, very good. So it has Rejuvenate. You remove 4 markers from it, take a card from underneath, put it to the drop area. Auto once per turn when a card in the battle area is returned to its owner's hand by a skill. Draw 1 card, then choose 1 card in your hand and place it at the top or bottom of your deck. So more filter and more deck stacking, or getting bad cards put to the bottom, whatever the case is. +1, activate main. Choose up to 1 blue battle card in your hand with energy cost of 1 and play it. That's really, really good in this deck because those Gokus and Vegetas can only be played by skills. But actually, this unison's really cool because it opens up room for other strategies, especially in the future. So like, there are random good cards you can play with this, like the Vegeta 1-drop double striker. There is a Goku 1-drop, take a life, gain crit. So there are a lot of options for this card in more of like a generic deck. So I think this unit is really, really cool in that respect. Trunks God-Slaying Technique, of course we're playing it, it's just obvious, but what's so cool about this card in this deck is that the Goku and Vegeta we just looked at, they can search this card. They search for a blue Saiyan card, cost 5 or less. So being able to search God-Slaying Technique Trunks, a card that many players actually wanted banned in the game, having the ability to search for that is so strong. So one of the really big things about this deck that makes it a lot better than people might think. West Galaxy Revival. We're only playing 3 copies of this card, and that might be weird after I read the effects. So activate main. If leader's a blue Paikuhan, draw 2, choose 1 card in your hand and place it on top of your deck. Then switch one of your mono blue energy to active mode. You can't activate main skills on this card or on other copies of this card for the turn. The other activate main says if your leader's blue Paikuhan and you choose one of your blue unison cards with the rejuvenate skill, then send this card from your drop area to your warp. Place top card of your deck under the chosen unison card, and you can't activate the activate main skills and copies of this card for the turn. So you can only do one or the other of this card, not both in the same turn. What's really nice about this card is you don't have to play the super combo that puts itself under the unison after it's comboed. You're not forced to play that, which is very nice. You would think you would want 4 copies of this card because it's a raw draw 2. You don't get to keep both those cards. One of them has to go back on top of your deck, or 1 card from hand in general has to go back on top of your deck. But actually, I treat this card much like I treat that Paikuhan we read earlier. I don't just like shotgun this card when I draw into it. I'll more so wait for a scenario in which I stack the top of my deck and I know what's there, And if they're cards I really want, like let's say a super combo, a negate, a secret rare, whatever it is, you can play this to draw into those cards. Now if I open 3 copies or if I open 2 copies, yeah, sure, I'll use one early. I won't necessarily hold both of them because you can only use one per turn, so it's really pretty well balanced in that way. I could see this card being a 4 of, and then you just like kind of shotgun it every single turn. But honestly, this is a 53 card list. I wanted to save some space in the deck, so that's why we're playing 3 copies of this. But 3 copies for me has been working out quite well. All right, so here's the beef of the deck. We have the Gogetas. Gogeta Demon Slayer is our intermediary Gogeta, so he has unique, barrier, and dual attack, so he is safe from green in terms of charismatic villain, not so safe from blue, but most other colors he is very safe. Activate main, pay 3 blue. If you lead your cards a blue Paikuhan and you place 1 blue Goku and 1 blue Vegeta with energy cost of 1 from your deck in the drop area, shuffle your deck and play this card from your hand. So that's kind of how he fuses. It's not actually like a union fusion skill or anything like that. You basically just mill Gokus and Vegetas into your drop area. Activate main once per turn, burst 1 if your leader card is blue Paikuhan and you have 4 more energy. If the card placed in your drop area with this skill was a blue Gogeta card with energy cost of 8, play it on top of this card. At the time of recording, there are only 2 options to do that effect with. You have Gogeta Godspeed Demolisher or the Gogeta S3 Secret Rare. Spoilers, we're not playing it in this deck. It actually isn't a bad secret rare in this deck at all because of this ability to play it like this. And you also put Vegetas and Gokus in your drop relatively easily, so you can resolve that effect. But when Baby Hatch is a card, you can't really justify playing that over that, at least if you're being competitive. If you want to play this deck at locals or just be a little bit more flavorful, play S3 Gogeta. It's not bad, but you know, Hatch is so strong. So Gogeta Godspeed Demolisher, double strike, dual attack, EX evolve 2 blue over a blue Gogeta with an energy cost of 5. We have a lot of options for that, as you see. Auto once per turn if your leader is mono blue when this card's played or your opponent activates a battle card skill, choose up 2 of your opponent's battle cards and return them to the owner's hand. So you get a little bit of removal there. Auto if your leader card's mono blue and you have 6 or fewer cards in your hand. At the end of your opponent's turn, they choose 3 cards in their hand and place the rest at the bottom of their deck in any order. Okay, this is Gogeta 7, but much more fair. Infinitely more fair. So fair, in fact, that it's probably not all that great. Now, in this deck, it's not a super heavy commitment because we are blue, so things that cost a lot of energy in blue are not as costly in terms of virtual advantage as in other colors. You do have ways to manipulate your energy. You most often will not be tapped out on any given turn, which is quite good. This guy, pretty easy to answer in terms of removal. I kind of wish he had deflect, believe it or not, just because it would make playing this guy in the blue matchup a lot easier. Like, I think this card is the type of card where you should be allowed to play it. There should not be much that stops you from getting it onto the field, but the fact that it doesn't have barrier is perfect in terms of balance. This card should be very easily removable, and if your opponent can't do that, then you get the maximum payoff of the auto. I like the way this card is designed very well in that way. When it comes down though, big threat, dual attack, double strike, very solid. We're also playing 2 copies of Ultimate Fusion Gogeta because the Paikuhan, as you read before, can play any Gogeta of a cost of 5. This card is absolutely incredible. Bottom deck 2 battle cards, draw 2. You can't ask for much more than that. And in this deck, you can fuse into it for 4 energy if you need to, if that's the situation that comes up. So overall, very happy with this Gogeta lineup. Then for the big boys, we are playing the Baby Hatch. We're playing the 1 Fu Shrouded. Fu Shrouded is just a great card in, you know, slower kind of control-y / mid-range decks like this. You're going to be able to get to a very late game status. Baby Hatch, again, of course, you can play S3 Gogeta if you choose to. I'll probably be playing that in IRL when I build this deck because I'm going to have Baby Hatch in my other blue decks. But regardless, either one is playable. Baby Hatch is probably just better on like a competitive spectrum. And then we have 3 Senzu Bean. We're not playing Dimension Magic in this deck. Senzu Bean is our main source of untap. We're not playing Dimension Magic because, you know, the Draft Box 6 Silver Bullets do exist. Not that everyone's maining them by any means, but there's not a ton to do with your energy on your opponent's turn. So Dimension Magic just doesn't feel as necessary, especially that Paikuhan, that blocker, right? You pay 2 during your next main phase. You don't pay 2 during your opponent's turn. So Dimension Magic's a little bit less necessary there. 2 Dirty Burst. We do actually already play 4 negates with that Goku and Vegeta we read earlier on. So Dirty Burst is just good. It means you don't die to certain boss monsters. Cell Xeno, Fu Shrouded. I like this card a heck of a lot. And the Vegeta Discipline Warrior. I was playing Zamasu Super Combo and Goku hit Supreme Alliance. I was playing that in the deck before I came to this version, and it was actually very good. Obviously, Zamasu's incredible. Goku hit is really solid just for extra pressure. And it's a way outside the deck's own archetype to do things. But I ended up cutting that stuff for extra space. Notice again, this is a 53 card list, so I was a little bit tight on space there. Vegeta is also good because it puts Gokus and Vegetas back into your deck so that you can use the Gogeta 5 drops effect to mill them, because sometimes in an elongated game you may run out of those Gokus and Vegetas. So just keeping that in mind, this card's been very, very good. But that also brings me to the back to the point of, you can very easily play this deck with a regular mono blue shell. You'll gain a lot of advantages, and I think it can actually work out. I think this leader can be quite good when compared to, like, you know, Soul Striker, SS3 Reboot, Baby Vegeta, although it's kind of like its own archetype. But you get the idea. The mono blue good stuff leaders, I think Paikuhan can definitely hang with those leaders as well. So guys, that's the deck profile. I do want to know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.